So this is part 2 of my year with the iPad Pro video. If you haven't watched part 1, I'll link it below in the description. But part 1 basically covers the hardware that I've been using. And in this video, I'm going to cover the software. I also realized when I did the other video, I didn't really talk about what I'm doing with the iPad. Obviously I do these videos, and I have a day job, but I'm not going to go into that for these videos. I'm just going to kind of stick with this video side of things. But I've always done a lot of writing and most of the producing and a lot of the organizational stuff on my iPad. Obviously I had been using a Mac to edit the videos, and then I use a Canon DSLR camera to film everything. But for the first time with this video, I'm not only going to do all that stuff on my iPad, the producing, writing, all that stuff, I'm also going to edit everything on my iPad. The third video, I'm going to go over how I did all of that, but this is the very first video on my channel that will be entirely produced off of an iPad Pro. I'm very excited for this. But let's kind of get into it. So for the very first thing to know about working off of an iPad, you're going to have to worry about document management. Document management is one of those things that every computing platform has. And a lot of people say the iPad doesn't have it, or that there's no real file system. And there is. It's just it's not Finder. The very first thing to know about document management on the iPad is you're really going to have to use cloud storage. I'm sure you could probably get away with doing everything locally, with apps like Documents by Readle and stuff like that, but you're gonna have a really difficult time trying to do everything locally. I use a combination of Dropbox, iCloud, and my own FTP server. Dropbox is where I keep all of my documents, whether I'm writing something or storing PDFs or pictures or even these video files I'm keeping on Dropbox right now so I can come to them and edit them later. iCloud, I usually use iCloud for syncing apps. iCloud's great about that because when you sign into your device, it pulls all the information from iCloud, so you don't have to worry about signing in for each individual app. You usually just allow iCloud access and there you go. iCloud Sync really works great with stuff with like Pages, Numbers, Playgrounds, Workflow, Pixelmator, stuff like that, you have data that's not necessarily text documents. Well, I guess Pages is text documents, but that will sync across your multiple devices. And I use my FTP server for a couple of things. I use that for all my development projects, so when I just want to do a little bit of dev work on my iPad, or now in this case, I'm using it to host video files and upload video stuff for these videos. My FTP server is just a Mac Mini I have here. There's nothing really special about it. You could build a NAS or do anything you really wanted to, but I use that. The biggest thing that I've been using my iPad for now has been writing. And with iOS 9, I started doing all my note-taking in Apple Notes. Apple Notes got a huge improvement. Excellent syncing. It used the backbone of iCloud instead of some weird IMAP thing. And it got a great overhaul. I was really impressed with it. And then a couple months ago, an app called Bear came out, and I did an app walkthrough. I'll link below to it. It's a note-taking app that supports Markdown, and my God, it's one of the best pieces of software out for iOS right now. I love that app. It handles everything like a champ. So when I start a writing project, I usually start with an outline, and I start with that in Bear. Like this video right now, I have my Bear outline up right now when I'm going through all this stuff. If I'm writing a script or something like that, that's when I've moved to OneWriter in the past. OneWriter has been my Markdown editor of choice for a few years, and it's a great application. It got iOS 9 split view support early. It's a great software if you want to do Markdown editing. But what I have been using recently is Editorial got a really big update, and with that came split view support and iPad Pro 12.9-inch support. So I downloaded that. I had been putting off downloading Editorial until it got support for those things. It's definitely a little late, and I understand a lot of people left Editorial because of the lack of updates from it. which I totally understand, but it is a very powerful application. It supports Python and Markdown, plus it has a built-in web browser so you can do crazy things with it. I plan on, after I've been using it a little bit longer, I'll do an app walkthrough just on that app because it's really impressive on what it can do, and I don't have enough time here to spend talking about that one application. After I finish writing a document, I usually export it as PDF. And from there, I move it into Notability. And what I do with that is I grab my Apple Pencil, like I talked about in the last video, and I mark up the document, make changes, or anything that needs to be done, really. If it's a blog post and not just a script, I use the Squarespace app to upload it to my website. The Squarespace app, if somebody from Squarespace just happens to be watching, please give that app some love. It's rough, to say the least. I've been thinking a lot about moving my website to something like WordPress to give me a lot more customizable. Then I can use apps like Workflow or something like that to just push my blog posts up there. Though ever since I've been doing these videos, I haven't really written a blog post, so that may not be a problem. I've mostly just been posting my videos there. So after writing, the next big thing for me is task management. And lately I've been using an app called Todoist, and honestly I don't know if I could get out of bed without my task manager. Todoist is a great application. I've just started using it a few months ago. Before that I was using To-Do, and that's the number 2 with D-O. That's a really great application, but it's very heavy. There's a lot of stuff in it, and it takes a lot to kind of figure everything out. It's not something that you can jump in there and add a task pretty quickly. Todoist, though, has web APIs and all sorts of crazy automation stuff that you can do with it. So I can use my Echo to add tasks to my today view or to my task list, or I have a specific project set up called groceries, and I can add stuff to my grocery list through the Echo, which is kind of cool. The app is light. It's powerful, but it's light, and that's what I like. I can get in and out of it quick. I can add a task and get out. I'm not sitting there pushing through a bunch of different features, trying to select due dates and push notifications. Todoist supports natural language input, so you can just type what you want and then it's done. The nice thing also is I have a workflow that I can run that basically asks me what the task is and what the due date is, and I can fill those two things in, and I'm off to the races. I don't have to open the app even to do anything with it. Also, it has supports for things like projects and labels and all sorts of different things. Projects are really nice because I'm able to organize things. So I have projects for my app walkthroughs and videos and groceries and my day job and all these other things. So it's kind of handy to have that to be able to organize your stuff. They do have just like a general bucket you can drop things into that I do for personal stuff that isn't related to these videos or my day job or anything like that. So email is a pretty big thing that a lot of people have to handle. I, like most people, hate email. To make email a little easier, I've been using an app called Airmail. Airmail is probably the most powerful email application on iOS. And if you kind of haven't found a trend, I like to use the apps that are very powerful on iOS, usually for automation or whatever reason. But if they get a little too heavy or bulky, like you have to jump through a lot of hoops, that's when I kind of start to back away from it. Airmail is light enough that I can jump in there, read the emails or respond to something or write a new email and get out. But the back end of it, the settings, is crazy customizable. It supports pretty much every email feature I can think of, plus a few more. It has your typical snooze and add star and add labels and things to email, but it also has a feature that I absolutely love. It's called Bounce. And basically you select that and it's going to send an email back to the resender that makes it look like that email was never delivered. That's kind of cool. There is a lot in Airmail to cover, so I think I'm going to do a separate app walkthrough just on that. But if you're looking for a powerful email application to handle a lot of email on your iPad, Airmail's the place to start looking. Another one that I've also used too is Spark. And if you're looking for something to more manage a large inbox to just kind of go through and archive stuff quickly, Spark would probably be the email application I'd recommend for you. So calendar is something really interesting. I use my calendar a lot for my day job. For these videos, not so much because I don't really work with anybody. So I use it a lot for my personal life and to schedule, family events and get-togethers and friends and stuff. That's all really important. And the app I like for that is Fantastical, for a few reasons. First, it supports natural language input. So you can just open it up, type in what you need to do, and save. I don't know why all calendar apps do. Well, I take it back. I do know why some calendar apps don't support that. Natural language input is very hard to implement. It's not easy at all, but when you can do it and do it right, it's a lifesaver, and that's why I've stuck with Fantastical for years now. Just like Todoist, I have a workflow that I can run that I fill in a few questions and it adds a new task or a new calendar entry into my calendar. What's nice about this is I don't ever have to open the app. So if I have somebody standing there waiting for me to enter this in, I don't want to be rude and taking 20 minutes to open the app and type everything in and make sure I get the right date and stuff like that. I can just run this workflow, fill in the blanks, and I'm good to go. Also, this is a pretty minor feature, but this is kind of what brought me to Fantastical originally. The ability to change what happens when you tap an address. When I got big into Fantastical, it was right when Apple Maps first came out, and I know everyone on the internet knows what Apple Maps was like when it first came out, so I don't need to rehash that. So I wanted to switch over to Google Maps, and I didn't like that the Apple Calendar, every time I hit an address, it went straight into Apple Maps. So Fantastical has the ability to change what GPS application you use. You don't have to use Google Maps. I think Waze is supported, and I'm sure a few others are as well. But now when I tap an address, it loads straight into Google Maps. There's kind of been a trend already with these apps, and I'm sure you've spotted it. I love automation. Anytime I could get something, service or an application to do something for me and I don't have to think about it, that's a plus. That's a big win for me. I'm not saying I'm the busiest person on the planet, but I can be a little forgetful, and automation is a great way to handle that. I'd say the single most powerful application on the whole ecosystem for iOS is Workflow. This app is insane. The developers behind it, I'm actually surprised Apple allowed this onto the platform. Basically, the whole idea behind it is you build blocks, and it's blocks of code, really. Your coding is what you're doing with this. You build blocks to trigger certain tasks. So I have stuff to share new video posts. Like I've talked about, I have stuff for new Todoist tasks, new Fantastical tasks. I have stuff to play music playlists, all from a touch of a button. This thing is great. I highly recommend this app. It does take a little bit of getting used to, and it's a big application. I do not expect anybody to get it at the very first try. When I first downloaded it, I couldn't figure it out, deleted it almost instantly. I didn't want to spend the time to get to use it. But as I started using my iPad more and more, I realized that was the application that's going to help me get a lot of work done. This is a huge application, like I said. So I'm going to do a whole series on just this application. I wanted to touch on it briefly because there's no way I'd be able to get my work done without this application. But like I said, I'm going to do a whole series on it. It's way too big to even try and cover here. Alright, this next one isn't really an iPad app. It's a web service. It's called IFTTT. I think I had enough to... IFTTT. Yeah, got that. It's really... What it stands for is, if this happens, then trigger this. It's really if this, then that. But if this series... So I have things like... If I add something to my grocery list on my Amazon Echo, then add it to the project on Todoist called Grocery. It's kind of cool how that works. I never see it run. It runs in the background. Sometimes there can be a little bit of a delay, and I'm not sure why that happens, but it's never more than about 5 minutes. So you can set stuff up to trigger blog posts automatically or Twitter posts. It's a great service to have. I highly recommend anyone check it out, even if you don't use iOS as your platform. It just works. There's also a lot of web services and smart home stuff that plug into this. So I have like all my Philips Hue stuff that plugs into this, blog post stuff, plenty of stuff. So go check it out, see what stuff you have that kind of works with it, and just play around with it. So the third and final thing I want to talk about is Zapier. I haven't fully grasped it yet, so I don't want to go into too detailed, but basically it's more of an advanced IFTTT. It's multiple triggers from multiple web services. It's crazy these things can do. It is a paid for web service, which I'm all for because that means it's going to stick around. I'm a little nervous that IFTTT isn't a paid for service, or you can't pay for it. At least I don't think you can. If you can, let me know. Leave a comment, because I'd love to send them some money because I want that service to stick around. But anyway, so Zapier is a pretty big thing. I think I'm going to do, like I've kind of done with a few other things in here, I'm going to do a whole video on that because it's big and I haven't fully put my head around it. But I can see it being very helpful for anybody working off an iPad. So I'm going to end part 1 of the software video right here. This video turned out to be a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, so I'm going to split it up into 2 parts. So I'm going to end part 1 right here. Hopefully I'll have part 2 up in the next couple of days. Thanks, guys.